Okay, guys, so enjoy the gameplay. I did have to go out and get Yoshi's Crafted World. I just thought this game had a very cool look to it, and so far, what I've played of the couple levels so far, I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. It's a really good game. But that's not why we're here to talk. I started having some conclusions of my own. So, as we know through the Wall Street Journal and also through Eurogamer, saying that they have connections with people that are going to be on the assembly line or helping develop the new Nintendo Switch Mini and Pro, as people were calling it, which I seriously doubt they'll go with that name scheme. Um, that these new products are coming. So, if you're not up on the know, just go back a little bit. The rumor is that there's two new Switches versions of the Switch in the works. One is a portable only version where there's no Joy Cons, the controllers integrated into it, similar to like a 3DS or a Game Boy or something like that. And that will be mostly for portable. Now, what people weren't clear on is if that will still have like a TV output mode. Will it be like a dock sold separately for it? But this is supposed to be a cheaper version of the Switch, a lower cost version that's a little bit more rugged for kids, and it's supposed to be catering to that 2DS line, is the way that they call it. So I don't know if this is going to be like a Slate, if it's going to look like a Vita, or if this thing will have like a flip-up screen, like 3DS. The other question is does this thing have a lower resolution since it's supposed to be smaller? And it sounds like the screen's going to be slightly smaller. Is the screen still going to be 720? I don't see how that would be an issue. But Nintendo's very savvy on some things, and I think Nintendo realizes when you shrink the screen down smaller than the 6.2 inches of the current Switch, you don't necessarily need to keep the resolution the same. You could save some cash, lower the resolution down to even like what the Vita was, which was like I think it was something weird like 970 by 542 or something like that. But you could lower it down to another 16 by 9 resolution and reap the benefits of not having to render, at 720 and get a little bit of extra performance, even though it's a portable device. Now, this also comes into play if there's a new SoC. Now, originally, when people were talking about a Switch Mini, I was thinking that this would just use the Tegra X1 that the current Switch uses, and then a Pro would be used like a much more powerful chip. And a matter of fact, I was kind of betting more on the Pro being more like a dock add-on for the current Switch, where it would just have like a GPU with some memory in there, and you just dock, and then you use up a little bit more power, maybe output to 4K. With the current graphics settings and everything, it wouldn't make the game technically look better, just at a higher resolution. I'm starting to rethink that now. So last night I was watching Spawnwave's video on this, talking about his input on it and stuff. And as he was talking about, he brought up a good point. The X1 is a few years old here in terms of what NVIDIA likes to keep around for their processors. So it's a special custom 20 nanometer chip, which is kind of weird for a Maxwell chip because all the other Maxwell chips are 28 nanometer. So this thing was already making concessions with NVIDIA's fab time getting made, saying that, it's a special 20 nanometer chip. But NVIDIA smartly kind of took that and made their own product out of it with the Shield TV, so that they had some benefit on top of that, as opposed to just selling to Nintendo, a chip for their device. But now they're on graphics cards that are down to 12 nanometers. Could they be either building a new chip, or what I think is more likely, re-engineering the X1's architecture to run at 12 nanometers, or be put together, I should say, at 12 nanometers instead of 20? So, because right now, I could imagine it's in a situation where NVIDIA's only got so many days at TSMC to put for the fab to put their stuff together. And if they have to have tooling out for a 20 nanometer chip, there's a possibility that the only thing that they're making that day is X1s for the Switch and the Shield TV. There's been a rumor of a new Shield TV coming along. If they just re-engineer the Tegra X1, the benefit for that would be is that the chip would be able to run cooler, run more efficient on power, and run with slightly higher clocks. Now, the rumor of this thing is that it's not going to be like a PS4 Pro, kind of jump and graphical power or anything. It'll just be a small leap, similar to like what the new 3DS was to the original 3DS, which was still a pretty good jump at the time. So they may be re-engineering some new things like better memory bandwidth. Maybe this will have a little bit more memory, maybe 6 gigs instead of like 4 gigs of RAM or something like that. But the interesting thing is, I think here, is that they're trying to re-engineer a chip so Nintendo can still sell a Switch, and they don't have to dedicate an entire day in the fab just to make chips for Nintendo and technically for themselves. So with that said, as the Switch is out right now, does that mean that the stockpile of the current X1 is getting low? And the reason Nintendo's kind of looking at this is not only to diversify and make a cheaper Switch out there with the Mini, but if this thing's using a new 12 nanometer Tegra, and even if it's like a re-engineered X1, that means, and if we assume that it has a slightly lower resolution, this thing could theoretically perform on par with, performance-wise, as a docked Switch, like a current docked Switch in a portable. And then when you step it up to a new Switch to replace the old one with the older chip that also has like apparently some security holes and flaws in it, does that mean that this chip is just going to have a little bit extra power? So games that have like dynamic resolution scaling and stuff like that will now like run at a little bit higher. Like games, for instance, like Rocket League looks a little bit, it looks a little bad sometimes to get that 60 FPS on the current Switch. Does that mean it's going to be closer to running at like that native 1080 at 60 FPS than it did before on this newer Switch, just because it happens to have a dynamic resolution built into it? These are all interesting questions, and I think what we're looking at is not so much a Switch Pro, but just a current revision and replacement of the current Switch with a couple little benefits. So Joy-Cons will be the same, that kind of stuff. I think the actual size of the product will be pretty much the same. I could see maybe the screen getting like a bump in size because the black borders on this current Switch are quite large, actually. And so with newer screen technology and screen technology getting much cheaper, especially like edge-lit LED technology for the backlight and stuff like that, we could see a new Switch model where that screen's extended out, and that's the model that everybody's kind of referring to, the Pro. That will just be the new Switch, and over time the old one will phase out. Maybe like Nintendo during the holidays will fire sale. That's why I think we may actually see the portable come out first with the current Switch that we here know about. It uses the same dock and everything, but during the holiday season, they'll bring out the new Switch, and the new Switch will have these little extra benefits, and then what they have left in stock of the old Switch with the old X1 will be fire saled out. Anyways, I think it's interesting to think about that's what is happening here with Nintendo. The console holders have not been playing by normal rule sets for the past couple of years, with them having their like Xbox One X and PlayStation 4 Pro. And I think that's what we're looking at. I think we're looking at a possible slight upgrade and replacement in this actual Switch hardware alongside with a new, cheaper portable version using the same chip, so NVIDIA doesn't have to spend an entire fab day just for Nintendo. It's interesting, and it's cool that it has the benefits of, it should make the battery life on both devices last a little bit longer, or possibly just maybe it'll throw battery life, because the battery life on the current Switch I don't think is that bad, honestly. I don't ever sit around for 3 hours at a time playing a single game in just portable mode, but that's my daily use and how I use it. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I want to thank SpawnWave's video and kind of what his thoughts were, because it kind of like jogged my suspicions as to what this was, because I just don't see Nintendo bringing out like this many multiple versions out, because if you have that many multiple versions, I just see it splintering the market and being a bad thing, and ultimately they should know better, because Sega's done this already. Wasn't a good deal for Sega. Kind of was one of the reasons it didn't, and not the complete reason. But anyways, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up. I love hearing from you guys down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.